Well, hey, good morning, everyone. This is actually, I'm kind of excited about today. I've got not only an old, well, I don't want to say old because that sounds really bad, but I got a longtime friend with us today. But the interesting thing is that not only is he a longtime friend, so we're going to be, connecting with Nate, um, but Nate is also he's well known in the world as Dr. Jones.
Doctor.
So this is Nathan Jones. He does have a doctorate in what is your doctorate in?
in education, media, and teacher professional.
So, and he's currently working on all his stuff to become a school administrator. I
Wow.
don't know why he would want to do that. That's just crazy, but we all need those people, right? So,
You know, someone's got to do it. You know, so
so the key thing is with Nate, or I'm going to call you Nate, but everybody else can call you Dr. Jones, right? That's all I'm doing as, right?
yeah,
But the key thing is with talking with Nate today is that he not only fills that piece of connecting with an old friend, but also that professional side. So we talk about connections, and Nate's in the education field. And so, I want to tap into a little bit of that, how education actually helps and what we see. I listen to, I'm listening to a new book right now new to me by Mel Robbins.
Mm.
And it's called the Let Them Theory, which is just really freaking cool. And she talks about adult friends and how to have a really, really close adult friendship. The research shows that you have to have 200 hours invested in that. As a kid, that's easy because you're doing everything day in and day out, right?
Right.
But as an adult, that gets really hard. And I think Nate and I have surpassed the 200
It's just by
a long time ago.
just by a little bit. Yeah.
So anyways, I'm gonna, just like we've done before, I'm gonna open it up to Nate. And Nate, I want to hear your version of how we met. And
Yeah.
take it.
We met at a job. 89, 88,
88.
89. Right after the mission, and it was here in Provo, and it was North Provo, where Mark had partially grown up, and where his parents still lived, and we were right up there, right by Days Market, just up there. For those who don't know, and
It was called Fast Eddie's.
Fast Eddie's. That's right.
Yeah. And
That's
now it's a pharmacy.
right. Now it's a pharmacy.
Yeah.
It was called Fast Eddie's, and it was wasn't it a little like a Circle K wannabe thing? Wasn't that it? Or
Well, it was a convenience store,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Just a regular old convenience store. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a little, yeah. So it was Fast Eddie's. I'm not sure what made him fast.
I don't know. It was us. It was us.
It was us. There you go.
Yeah.
We made him fast. We gave the velocity to
That's
it.
right. That's right.
And then we just kind of became inseparable, just doing stuff all the time. I still remember Mark, just dragging me out of bed at 5, 6 in the morning every Saturday. And we would go to Denny's. It was just like, oh no, we got to go to Denny's.
We had a waitress that I don't even remember her name, but with the same waitress every week.
Yes, every week, the same waitress.
Yeah.
And she was probably so annoyed with us because we were just like, I don't know. It was just funny. It was just funny how we just ended up hanging out a lot, and then and everything just kind of went from there. And we just kind of kept in touch because some friends you got to keep in touch with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to keep in touch with, definitely.
There needs to be a certain, I don't know. There's something about reconnecting with someone who's known you for longer than 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
New friends are great. New friends are awesome. And sometimes new friends can feel like old friends, but there's just something, there's a balm of Gilead. No, there's a balm of, there's just there's something that helps. I don't know, the mental, I mean, maybe people who are psychologists can speak to this, but I'm just fully convinced that when we connect, even briefly, with people who've known us longer than 5 years, family, old friends, there's just something that kind of sets our mind right, and we're able to face the world better. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
It's interesting. And I think the thing for you and I that is probably the most telling when it comes to connecting is we went years not only not connecting, but 100% not communicating.
Right. Right.
In the middle of all that time period, we had a supposed falling out, and we found out there were factors that were outside of us, but we'd had
Right.
a supposed falling out,
Yeah.
and I don't mind sharing. I mean,
Okay.
it was 100% me, right? And I'll take full blame for it because I took something that was very personal and took it to a different level. And then,
Oh.
I was reactionary
Mm.
and I ran off and Nate knows this and I ran off and goodness sake, I was throwing Nate under the bus to a bunch of our friends. And then we didn't talk. We didn't communicate for, oh gosh,
And 8
10
years. Eight-
8, 10 years, something like that.
10 years. Yeah, I think it was 10 years. Gosh.
Yeah, it was about
What's
10
10
years.
years when you've known someone 30? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no.
Coming up on
But
30. Gosh, my
but
gosh.
the really cool thing is I think that the instructive thing that we can take from that,
Yeah.
number 1 is if you want to be connected with somebody long term, it's not easy always,
Right.
right?
Not easy. Right. Because,
It's
yeah, a long friendship, even marriages, right? I mean, you get to a point when you gotta hit reset. You gotta hit, and the ones who don't reset, you know, the ones, the friendships who don't wait 10 years, before reset, they do tend to last, but and it's funny how those resets can happen sometimes just weekly, or sometimes it can just be a falling out. But I think as long as there's communication and mutual respect and love, what can't be worked out, you know? Yeah.
yeah, and I loved it, and I'll tout Nate on this. He did not have to accept my call or, "Hey, I wanna visit with you," when we opened back up 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been 18, no, 17, 18 years ago that we reconnected, something like
Mm,
that, right?
something, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to take my call, and not only didn't have to call, but he didn't have to say, "Yeah, let's get together," and the interesting thing the beauty of it all is that when I made the call, which was really difficult for me
Mm,
because I knew that I had been the cause of from my end, I'll take responsibility of my stuff, right?
right.
And I knew from my end, um, that was a difficult call to make, and for him just to go, "Yeah, I'll be there in an hour." I mean, it was that afternoon. You showed up at my
Yeah.
office and then we had a chance just to kinda bare each other's soul a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And it's
And
funny too, because there was never really a hatchet to bury, because
no, no.
we never got, like, like, we never became enemies. It was just like you, felt very strongly about something, and and I was just like, well, I didn't know. I
Yeah.
wasn't part of it. And then, but I always appreciated our friendship, and so I just kind of like backed off, knowing you were going through what you were going through, and that maybe down the road, hopefully, and that's why I didn't hesitate, because your friendship was always worth it. So
Oh, we've always had a
hit
good
it
friendship.
publicly. Let's hit it
Yeah.
publicly.
Um, I think one of my favorite memories of our time together when we were young and in college, right,
Uh-huh. Right.
actually revolved around, we did a lot of goofy things, right? Um, we just it was dumb college stuff, right? But I
Yeah.
think the thing that really has stuck with me over the years, you and I always enjoyed just being goofy and having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what really solidified in my mind beyond the goofy and fun side of our relationship was the time that my cousin was in the hospital there. Do you remember going into
Right. Right.
and so I had a cousin that had, I don't even remember what kind of tumors it was, but she ended up having tumors up her spinal column, and she had some tumors that were in her brain that were pressing on that depression part of her brain.
Mm.
And so she was always just down, 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 and she didn't survive much longer. But Nate and I would go in and we like threw her an unbirthday party. We invited a bunch of friends and we
Yeah.
brought cake and balloons and we just would go and to me it was kind of like, oh, it's what we do. We're just goofing, right?
Yeah.
But where it really hit me the most was when I went down to her funeral and my aunt pulled me aside and she said, I don't know if you have any idea how much she looked forward to you and I coming because it was the time that she could remember to laugh and to smile. And so she looked forward to the goofs showing up, right?
Oh,
And
that's
and
funny. That's
yeah, it was so cool. So that's when for me it really solidified for you and I to go, okay, wait a second. This is beyond just two goofballs.
yeah, this is beyond just goofballs enjoying each other's company. When we put our goofy, fun natures, in service to just maybe lightening the load of someone else, that just yeah, and when you told me that how much it meant to her, that meant a lot to me, knowing that. It was just I don't know, it's just it's so cool, you know? It's like teaching. People don't teach for money. They do it, obviously the paycheck's important, we have to eat. But it's when we know we've touched uh, a kid's life, you know,
Yeah.
when we know we've been a positive influence, and that's, it just means a lot. It just really does. So, yeah.
So how did you end up going? I mean, from when we were in college, I don't remember you being focused on education as your degree. Do I? I don't. Were you studying
No,
education then?
no, that's the thing, and neither of us finished college then. It took
No,
us a
no, we went
while.
back later. Yeah.
We both kind of waited, but it's funny that, I I was just all about trying to make it in the industry, in the entertainment industry. I felt deep in my heart that I was funny. And I wanted to do it for a living. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be an
That's
actor.
right.
And so I was just determined. And finally, and I remember, I think you were there when I kind of just decided. In fact, I think it was in your living room when I decided I was going to go to LA. And I was
And you
just
had a conversation with my dad.
oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I still remember what your dad told me.
What did he
He s
say?
he said, um, he quoted a Glenn Campbell song, and he said, "There's been a lot of compromising on the road to my horizon." Uh, in the I think it was, Electric Cowboy or something like that, or whatever whatever song that was. Anyway, Rhinestone Cowboy, that's it. And he just asked me, you know, "Do you really want to compromise your values for a place in Hollywood?" And I didn't think of that. I hadn't thought of that before. I thought I'm a good person. I can hold my own. I can not go there.
Yeah.
I can decide what type of person I'm going to be. But it still made me think. It didn't stop me from going to LA.
Right. Right.
I tried it. And while I was in LA, that's when I realized it's just as hard or harder to get a job as a waiter, which is, because it's easy to get your shift covered. You can,
Yeah.
um, but it's harder to get a job as a waiter as it is as an actor. Because every actor is there and they
He's
need,
a waiter.
yeah, and every actor's a waiter. So it's like, holy crap. And so that's when I just decided to jump into education. I started teaching and realized I had a
Oh,
knack.
that's when you met Matthew McConaughey, wasn't it? I'm just kidding.
Actually, that's how I developed a kind of sort of a way of talking like him. You know what I'm saying? Uh, so you just got that Texas twang there.
A little bit of Texas in him. Yeah.
You just got that little bit of Texas in there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. All right, all right, all right.
That's right.
The way he talks. No, I wish I had. I met Patrick Dempsey, the actor, at
Oh,
a yeah, at like a where was it? As a post office in West Hollywood. Kind of interesting. Um, and a couple of other people, but yeah, it was an awesome time. But yeah, that's when I fell into education when I was in LA. Yeah, kind
what
of
do you mean
wild.
you fell into education?
Well, I went to I started just, well, like first I started, I thought, well, yeah, education, I could probably do that. I have an English degree. Cause by the time I left, I had finished my degree at age 30. I finished my degree.
You were faster than I was.
It's still right. We took our time, right? So I had my English degree and I thought, oh, well, I guess, I have an English degree. I guess I could put that to use. I can just go maybe become a substitute teacher. So when I need money, you know, and then I tried comedy. I tried all these things. We did like, I found, I was in a comedy troupe and we did like one year we did like 100 shows in a single year. And
Wow.
it was two a week. Yeah. It was wild. But then I started falling more and more into like, oh gosh, I guess I need a job. And so then I finally signed a contract because they kept saying, we kind of need English teachers here. And so I decided to do that. And then I was offered a job up in Salt Lake, up in the Salt Lake area, um, teaching screenwriting, teaching English electives. So I thought I'll do that back in Salt Lake. And so yeah, so I was in LA for like 4 years, and then yeah, but fun times. But but
That
because
seems
everyone and their
that
dog has
seems
a
so
different
fake.
there, and they go, oh, wow, and
Yeah.
then they realize it's work. Oh wow, work? No, I don't want to work. I just want to be a star.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, but then you realize, okay, I just learned a lot about, I jumped into writing and I'm still writing. It's funny. I am still trying to write stuff and then, and but yeah, it's kind of went from there. But yeah, but you had a kind of a circuitous kind of route to where you are now, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I
yeah,
did. When yeah, it was crazy. You go from wildland firefighter to, and I still was pretty much involved in one way or another fire up until about 3 weeks ago when
right,
I finally said I'm done.
right.
And so yeah, mine was I when I finally went back and finished my degrees, I was 49.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That-
So,
That's right.
um, and that became there was a sign that my wife put up on our dining room wall that was 28 years in the making.
What was the sign?
No, that's what it said, 28 years in the making. Mark has his degree kind of thing, right?
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And so, but yeah, I got my degrees in emergency management and emergency services.
Well, that's great.
I'm not in that field at this point. Once I stopped fighting fires and things like that, I was like, "Oh,
Right.
I'm not there, right?"
Right.
Um,
But I
now
commend
I'm
you for that, Mark, because I commend you that for that because I know some guys who I've even floated the possibility, hey, why don't you finish your degree? You could always teach, you could do this. And they just kind of, no, no. And
well, I wasn't one that said, for years that burning desire to finish my degree, right? You're just kind of like, all right, whatever, right? What
yeah.
what was really for me was the thing that kind of pushed us over the edge to do that. Um,
Mhm.
was the recession in 08, 09.
Ah, right.
So I was in the
Right.
staffing industry. I was working for SOS Staffing,
That's right.
and then I was finally laid off. I was one of those layoff rounds, right?
Uh,
And I got laid off, and then I couldn't find a job work for anything.
yeah, because I remember you telling me this, your industry was suddenly out of nowhere requiring a bachelor's.
Most
Yeah.
interviews, most companies were like, "Oh, now we have this influx of all these educated and uneducated people, like
Yep.
college educated,
Right.
right? Listen, at that level. But then if we have our pick, we're going to tell you have to have a bachelor's." Well, I remember going to apply at the Apple store in Orem,
Wow.
and I didn't have a degree to work at the Apple store.
At the Apple store?
At the Apple store,
And they wanted
right?
a degree?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the manager's like, "Ah, you don't have a degree. I've got others that have them." Like, "Okay, wait. I understand retail. I've worked in retail, right?"
Right.
And, um, and that's when, a friend of mine who was a manager at Costco there in Orem, Utah. So it's like,
Mhm.
hey, we just need some part-time help. I'm like, I'll come over and I'll be
Yeah.
part-time help at Costco, right? And around that time period is when it's like, I got to go back to school. Now I have to get a bachelor's degree. And for me, the easiest bachelor's to get was emergency management because of fire experience.
You were already in that field. Yeah.
Right. And so it made it really easy. It was a pretty easy degree for me to get because there were certain classes that I could just go, I don't have to worry about that class. I can
Right.
get signed out of that one kind of thing. And
Right.
so
Right.
it was rather quick. But I think at this point, what I love a lot is that when I finished, um, Victoria decided that she wanted to go back to school. And so she's in school and working on her stuff. And
I
she's just a couple semesters away from being done with her stuff at Utah State. So it's way, way cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. And
Yeah.
tell me this. I know that our theme is connecting and connections.
Yeah.
What is there a certain dynamic between the connections you make at work and the friendships that maybe start in a workplace like ours? Is there something about uh, making connections with people at work versus outside of work? And is it different? I mean, in given your life experience, what you know?
I think the big difference from my point of view on that, and that's such a really cool point. I think
Mm,
the big difference for you and I is we met when we were both young, single,
yeah,
and had
yeah,
plenty of time to spend 200 hours.
right,
Right.
exactly,
Right. We
right,
were in college, just I think we had 200 hours in the first few weeks. I don't know. It was
yeah,
just we really
yeah,
spent a lot of time together.
yeah,
And, the difference being like now I have a lot of people I work with. Okay.
right,
I work with a lot of really cool people.
yeah,
However, I don't even though I've spent more than 200 hours with these individuals, it's in a work basis,
right,
right? Where I'm younger, I didn't have as many responsibilities, right? I have,
right, right.
and I think that's the struggle that we have as adults,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
As those adults,
Is
yeah,
yeah, we're adulting now, where you've got home and kids and animals and whatever it is. Well,
yeah.
when we were young, all we just wanted to make sure we ate and go to
Yeah.
class
We
sometimes,
wanted to
right?
eat fun, some kind of fun and adventure.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah,
so, um, for me, the work side of things, while I work with a lot of really great people,
yeah,
and I'm back in the staffing industry and I've been in the industry for several years.
yeah,
Um, I don't look and think, hey, can I, and sorry guys, if anybody watches this that I work with, but
right,
I don't look at that and go, how can I spend time with someone outside of work? I
right,
would rather get home and spend time with my wife, with our dogs, and in our home in Cache
right.
Valley, Utah, which to us is nirvana, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
and
where
so
it's where it all happens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so that's the driving factor for me. So I think that when you look at it from a work standpoint to
yeah.
a long-term connection like you and I, while we did meet at work, we were young and didn't have a lot of cares. And so we were
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Now
Right.
it's different. I mean, like I say, got a lot of cool people I work with. And you probably have the same thing. There's probably great people you work with, but you go, would you go
Exactly.
bowling with them? Maybe not.
Maybe
Right.
not. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I know you're right. Maybe one or two I would, and there have been a couple of friends at my current job. Uh, I teach kids at a lockdown facility for troubled teens for really it's behavioral and mental health lockdown facility for teens. But they're really, really good kids. Even when they're not good kids, you know, there have been a couple people I've had work. I've met outside of work and we grab a dinner or we just grab a smoothie or something like that. But it is interesting, this whole idea of connection and really and of connecting. If I can put my little if I can put my little professor hat on
I
for a
was
second.
just going to say, put your educator hat on for a
Yeah.
second.
There's an educational psychologist, long since retired. I don't even know if he's still alive. His name was David Ausobel, and he said that if you could distill his 30 years of being an educational psychologist into one line, it would be to that the importance of meeting students with their interests, connecting them with what connects to them. And that is, it's huge. And it's not easy to try to do that with a group of kids because sometimes, when you're trying to teach grammar, and stuff and writing and stuff they hate doing, right? It's just hard, so you have to kind of help them trick their own minds into connecting to stuff and engaging with it. And I've noticed that there is I would say, especially in this, and I'm saying this for the first time, so you heard it here first. Um, I would say that there is a correlation, or I'm gonna make one, between connecting with your education and connecting to a friend. Because the best way to know anything, and this is based on, you know, the neuroplasticity research that's done, and the science of learning. The more, how people say, I'm a visual learner, I'm this learner.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, that has been long misunderstood. The reality is people may lean towards one thing. Like, for instance, I'm more of an audio learner. If I hear something, it's the chances of it staying in there much better than even if I read it, right? So I would say that, but it's interesting because the more you engage with the curriculum, the more you speak it, the more you write it, the more, like anything that you're trying to learn, the more you the more you hear it, the more it's the more ways that you're engaging with it with the five senses, even touching, smell, like whatever. If you're able to, that's the best way to engage in anything. And I think it's kind of the same with friendships, right? Like you mentioned the 200 hours. What was it? The 200 hours to connect with someone, to become a
No,
friend?
200 hours to become a close friend.
Close friend. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just think that it's the same with learning anything, like learning a person, like learning a language. Do we understand their syntax, so to speak? Do we understand how to spell them? Do we understand what makes them tick? Because until we really understand them, until we learn a friend, can we really know? Can we really know them? Can they feel understood? Can they feel understood enough to be able to feel connected to us? So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool metaphor, between
Yeah.
connecting,
Yeah.
I think we're learning, and learning a friend, right? Engaging
So
with a friend. Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of strength finders.
No, what is that?
So is strength finders it's basically a personality profile, right?
Oh,
That Gallup, you've heard of Gallup, the polling company.
totally. Yeah.
So they have put together this personality profile. And the idea behind it is not to say, okay, you have a tendency to like this or that, but it's identifying what your strengths are. And their attitude is, if you focus on your top 5 strengths,
Mm,
you'll have much greater success than if you worry about what's my weakness and I want to focus on that, which
so true.
which makes sense, right?
So true.
My number one strength is developer. And what that means is I love helping people go from point A
Yeah.
to L or whatever it is, right?
Well, right,
Um,
right.
you help them go through that process. And to
Not just
me,
one step, but many steps.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
watching them through that process. And a couple things, I Victoria calls it my one of my superpowers is meeting people where they are.
Mm.
Now I'm not
Make
perfect
a
at it.
great educator. You make a great
I
educator.
will be the first one to tell you that I fail at it often, right? But I really work hard to meet people where they're at that point, and then help them through that process.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
and
That's
that can happen in an education standpoint. That happens in the
absolutely.
business world. As
Yeah.
I've had team members that didn't believe they could do something, and you meet them where they're at and you help them see a little bit, and then you push them a tiny bit and they do it, and they push them a tiny bit and they do it, and you help them to all of a sudden they go, holy cow, I can do this that I never thought I could before.
Right.
And I think it's the same in education, right? I mean, as
So
you're
true.
going through that process, I remember, um,
In fact, you can say
my
you can make the argument if you're not meeting your students where they are, um, you're not a good teacher. You're overwhelming them, and it's not working. Yeah,
you're talking to them, not with them.
exactly. That's exactly it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
true.
it's just it's interesting, and what I'm curious about from your end, you're working with some kids that have struggles. All
Yeah,
kids have struggles, let's be honest, right?
right.
Just
Absolutely.
we all did.
We all did.
But
Yeah, yeah.
and
It's
we
true.
all do, right?
We all
In this
do.
book
They never stop. They sometimes compound. Right.
in this book that I've been listening to, when you talk about different modalities of learning, right?
Yeah.
I love to listen to the books because I
Mm,
drive a lot. I'm on the road a lot, right?
yeah.
And so I'll listen to books. But if it's something that catches my attention, then what do? I go buy the book.
Oh, nice.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, well, I have all these different things, and right now I'm going to be buying the Let Them Theory book because it's mind blowing, right?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and so with that, you take a look at that connecting, and you're talking about the kids and all that. One thing that she references, and she's referencing research herself, and I
Yeah.
would have to go back and what research or what therapist was she talking to, and I think it was a therapist that she was talking to that said that um, inside every one of us is an 8-year-old that throws tantrums.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's true.
You can
Gosh. Yeah.
and, and
Tantrums
so
may come in different forms, but they are nonetheless.
it, it was interesting because she was drawing that. She was like, okay, so what happens when the kid doesn't give they want? They throw a tantrum. What does an adult do? They send a rage email.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so
Kid,
true.
kid, kid gets upset enough and they give you the silent treatment. Adult gets upset enough, they go stoic, right?
Exactly.
and,
Ex
I'm, and I'm listening to that and I go, oh, yeah, I'm an 8-year-old.
Yeah, and we all are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's so true, like, even those of us who have more, self-regulation in terms of emotions, those of us who have, some sense of executive functioning skills, we still have that 8-year-old, that throws temper tantrums because 'cause we're not getting what we want or we're frustrated in some other way. Yeah,
right.
and I've noticed that connecting with friends, um, can often, again, just kind of calm that little 8-year-old for some reason. I don't know what the neuroscience is of connecting with people, but I
Oh, we're
know.
going to have an episode on it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome,
yeah.
yeah, I can't wait to watch that one and listen to that one. That'll be awesome because that's something I've noticed just in my own life that, I'll just the tantrums, the silent tantrums keep building.
Builds.
And then, of course as soon as I'm able to express them to a friend or a listening ear or someone who cares, suddenly I'm okay. Just being able to
Yeah.
express maybe this is maybe this is just what, you know, people have done for millennia, it's cheap therapy. And before therapy was a thing, of just listening
Yeah.
to a friend and knowing they understood you or at least, wanted to hear you. Is kind of it's an amazing, thing that happens, yeah, but
So let's circle back just a second, back to your educator hat.
okay.
And with the kids that you're working with, what if a parent is going to watch this or whatever, what are some of the things that a parent can do to help their children feel more connected?
Oh, that's a really good question. Oh gosh, how much time do we have? Dude, yeah, several hours. No, that's an excellent question. Now, do you mean connected to themselves, to others, to the things that they are learning? What do you mean by feel
Well,
connected?
it's so that the child feels connected because I don't know. I'm not an educator. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist, and I don't play any of those roles on TV.
Right.
So, uh,
Yeah, yeah, no,
uh, but in my mind, if a child, and this applies to adults, But if a
Sure.
child doesn't have those feelings of any level of connectedness,
Oh, yeah.
then I think then that opens up some behavioral issues. That opens up some struggle. That increases the child's struggle.
Right.
And Mark's theory, right? And like I say, I don't
Sure.
know anything other than that's my guess.
Well, no, you're guessing you're kind of on the mark there because be no, it's true because, for instance, Stanford researcher, Nell Noddings, think about how long, uh, like, over 100 and 110, 130 years, we have had, um, public education in this country, right? And granted, it didn't scale until, say, the 1910s, 1920s. In 1900, 1 in 20 kids attended high school in 1900. In 1940, it was like 80% of kids.
Yeah,
And so it just
right.
went up. This whole idea of public school went up. And it's so fascinating to me, the number of years that went by without really, and of course, it took a woman to do this, but Nell Noddings, Stanford researcher, raised 6 kids before becoming a scholar, but she was the first person to study. I'm embarrassed for the educational community that took this long. In the 90s, 80s? 90s, I think. Don't quote me. But anyway,
Well, either way, 80s or 90s, that's
yeah,
a
80s
long
or
time.
90s,
Yeah.
it was still a long time before someone studied caring in education. And I
Really?
think that's the key. And that's the key. She wrote a book called The Courage to Care. And her a lot of her research is about simply caring. And how can we care for kids? How can we help kids feel connected? How can we connect to kids? Because you've heard that the old expression, kids don't care of how much you know until they know how much you care. That's an old adage in education.
Yeah.
Well, that's it's still, so I'm not saying that before she studied it, there wasn't people who were caring, educators and
Oh,
educators.
no. I wouldn't have finished, senior year of high school English
Oh,
if
without
it wouldn't have been for 2 English teachers that I had, first
really?
semester and second semester. Oh,
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
wow, there you go.
I was the guy that got a D minus in grammar every year.
You're right.
I think they
Well, you're not
passed me because
alone. Most
they didn't want me
Americans.
coming back, right? And, one semester I had a teacher that recognized that I was not grasping.
Ah,
And so she actually took time to start teaching me some of that so that I mean, I remember getting a C and thought I had just landed on the moon, right?
I
And then another teacher that last semester, just the same type of person. These two had a huge carry. This is before this stuff that you're talking about, right? This is the
yeah,
mid 80s.
right.
And
Oh,
and very much were carrying, and I'm sure I had other teachers that were that way, but those are the two that I can think of right offhand that had a direct impact, and it was English, and we all love studying English.
No, no, and that's the thing, it's so funny. I deal every day with the annihilating contempt and anger and frustration and simply lack of interest that my students have toward all things grammar. Because I mean, and all things English. They're like, "What is it?" And I tell them, "Look, this is a thinking class. It helps you analyze, it helps you evaluate, it helps you not get ripped off when people try to sell you something, is what language are they probably going to use when they try to sell you something? This one, right? So, and that's the reason. But it's fascinating how, the fact that stayed with you, how many years, and the fact that on the top of your head, you can think of those 2 caring teachers who really spent some time with you,
Yeah.
who at least spent more time, that the fact that you noticed that, and your English is great right now. See, that's what worked out.
Well, it's years of practice and therapy and medication.
We all have to go to therapy for our English classes for having gone through them.
Yes, yes.
And some of us, maybe it's karma, become English teachers for that therapy. I don't no, it's fun because, but grammar really is the math of language, and a lot of kids don't like math either, and so, you know what I'm saying? It's kinda like and it is hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
anything that's worth doing, any relationship, whether it's us and another person or us and something we're trying to master, it's hard. It takes time, and it's that temporal aspect that, can either help us, or if we don't wanna spend that time, either with a person or
Yeah.
a or an academic discipline. Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. This has been a really interesting conversation as far as that connection between learning and learning someone
Right.
enough to
Yeah.
be a friend. Yeah, it's that and connecting to whether it be a body of knowledge or a person. Fascinating parallels there,
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. And so what would you say is I mean, what have you learned about me? I'll just throw it out there. What have you learned about me that is either a cautionary tale or to help you live your life or something that was inspirational? I don't know, like, because we all take something from, like connecting with other people, and I'm such a horrible friend, I forgot to wish you happy birthday last month.
That was weeks ago.
Yeah, that was weeks ago, Nate. Well, it was January, and anyway, sorry.
Yeah, see, we're in
Well,
February, so,
right, yeah.
that's okay. No, no. I think from my end, I look back and think, "Okay, what can I look at and say, what did I learn about you?"
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that I've always appreciated about you as a friend is, number 1, is you're passionate about whatever you're doing, you're in,
Oh,
right?
thanks.
Whether it's teaching, whether it's just, your kids, you're all in on
Yeah.
on whatever you do, you're passionate about what you're doing.
Oh,
And
thanks.
okay, and I gotta bring up the wife too, right? I mean, everything's there. When you're with your family, you're with your family. That's always been my impression, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, ever since we first met in college, that's been you,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think passion is an amazing thing that can help drive and keep going.
Yeah.
Even when the downtimes come. You spent 4 years in LA. I didn't know you were in LA for 4 years. I knew you went down, but I didn't know
Yeah.
how long, right? Because
Yeah, it was
that's during
9
that
years.
time period
Yeah.
we lost connection, right?
Right. Right, that's right.
And so, but yeah, it's interesting, we take a look at that side of it, um, and how I think that's been a driving factor and, you wanting to be the best educator you can be. And,
Which came later, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it
And
is
so
I'll do this for a while. I didn't really have that passion for it until I got, proverbially, hit on the head a few times, like, "This is your calling, stop
here
it."
you go. Yeah. Focus, focus.
Exactly. Seriously, this cosmic I don't know, okay, I guess that
Yeah. I'll do it this way so they can see.
it's funny, something I learned, about you that, I don't know, kinda helped me, help me live my life um, is similar to the stick-to-itiveness, but I've noticed, you like, we all have an ego, right? And
Yeah.
and yet your willingness to jump back into school, your willingness to jump back into a friendship, right? Like when maybe a little bit of ego had to do with the ending of that or something, right? And
Yeah,
so,
it did.
but the fact that you've been able to, where many people choose this other way. Because one thing I've noticed is that if you're creating anything, a friendship or a business or anything, and ego's involved, it's gonna fail. If it's not gonna fail immediately, it's never gonna be at its
Right.
best. And the fact that you overcame in major ways to the point of like saying, "Wait, it wasn't his fault, really. I mean, it was he was kind of a bystander." Yeah, I mean, it was a it hurt, but it was like, you know, and, and it was very, I don't know. I mean, dude, sometimes a man overcoming his ego is the hardest thing. And so you're an inspiration to me when I consider all that, all that you've done, that inner work you had to have done in order to do things and accomplish what you had because you hung up your ego, you know, or you hung it up at the right time. Like, I mean, whatever that means.
Because it always no matter who we are, it's always going to bear its ugly head sometimes.
Yes, exactly. 'Cause I
And
mean, yeah.
at that time period, and I don't know, it was just one of those strange things that I picked up, and periodically I would look to try and find you, right? And
Oh,
I didn't look
really?
real hard, but it's like, okay, where's he at, kind of thing, just out
Yeah.
of a curiosity. And I'd reached the point that I don't even remember how I found your number and found how to get a hold of you. I don't
Yeah.
even remember.
I remember
But
getting a blue, and I'm like, "Wait, what? Mark? What?"
yeah, yeah.
And it
And
was just this awesome, I don't know, it was just an
and the
awesome.
weird thing was is where you were at, you were 2 miles away from my office.
That's right. You were still at
You were right.
SOS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So,
worked in that same office in '89. You remember that? No, '88.
yep, in
Was it
'88.
'89?
It was
It was
'88.
'89.
We were
Yeah.
in that same office, and
Yeah.
I used to come in when you'd have an order back, an order to fill for temporary workers, and remember,
That's
I'd come in and help make phone calls so we could get you out of there and we could go play.
right. And you didn't even work there. But again, then it's kind of like this kind of like whatever you say, bounces off me, sticks to you. That compliment you paid me that I'm passionate, I jump into things, dude.
Yeah.
You got to admit, you are known for that. You are passionate. You jump in feet first, and even to the point of even to the point of
No,
knowing how to walk
I'm
again.
thinking you jump in feet first. I'm like, "Dude, really? You're gonna go there?"
Yeah, or I
Those of
should
you that
in your case, wheels first. But
those of you that don't know, we haven't shared that part of it, but those of you that don't know, I was in a really bad accident a lot of years ago where I
yeah.
fell 40 feet and landed on my feet first. So when he said, "You jump in feet first," I'm like, "You're gonna go there,
You're gonna
really?"
go there, Nate? You're really gonna go there? Yeah, I didn't realize exactly what I was saying. I was just going on autopilot right there. But you're right, that was in bad taste. I apologize. But no, even with walking again and all the stuff that all the ways that those oils help and everything. But you were all in. You were determined, especially when I think it was when you were with your family and you're with your dad and your brothers and you were in a chair and they were walking around grabbing wood and you just went, I want to be there with them. Damn it. What the heck? You know what I mean? Like you were, I could, when you told me that story, that just really hit me because I know how much you love the outdoors and I know how
Yeah.
much you being out there, and because let's face it, it's also the manliest thing ever, being in the outdoors and you know what I mean? And just loving the outdoors. And you did, you jump in and you're just committed. And I just, anyway, always loved that about you, man. So
I appreciate that, man. Well, everybody, thanks for coming. I will kind of wrap up on that. And I appreciate anybody that spends the time to listen to two old college goofballs visit. And yeah, exactly.
well,
So that's right. And by the way, if you really want to go back, Nate did make it in the big leagues. He was in Dumb and Dumber
yeah.
as a waiter in the owl scene. And if you
Yeah, you blink,
watch,
you miss me, but I do
you
have a walk.
can, but if you watch, you'll see him go by. So,
Not for lack
but
of trying, not for lack of trying, because I kept trying to, when we were shooting it, I kept trying to bump into, uh, I did. This is all on the editing room floor. So for those who want to know a little bit of inside scoop on the movie Dumb and Dumber, here it is that I kept trying to like, I was an extra. I didn't have any lines, but I'm trying to ask for a drink and I'm kind of shoving my face into the same frame as Jim Carrey because I want. And the second AD, the second assistant director, who's over all the people without lines, all the extras, she cut. Okay, you're killing me. Can you? Was she's like, can you just walk from here to here? That'd be great. Thank you. And then that's what's in the movie is when I just walk. I'm
That is
surprised. I'm
awesome.
surprised Jim Carrey didn't say, "Is this guy? What the?" Yeah, it's hilarious. He's hilarious.
Can
So
you just walk from here to here?
I'm shocked they didn't fire me. Honestly, they could have. It was just funny. But
That's awesome. Well, Nate, thank you so much for coming on.
sure thing, bud. Anytime. Thanks for
Yeah,
having.
we'll make sure we keep catching up as we go on.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Thanks, man. We'll see you.